Hi everyone and welcome to episode 297 of the Mike White's podcast. I'm Jack, as always joined by Casey.
Hello.
So you said that like no one ever wins away games, but I thought we were meant to win all our home games.
Every home game.
We win everyone without fail.
Yeah. In fact, it's pretty much if you look at the league table, everyone in the top half has just won all of their home games.
Yeah. Which makes Leeds 1, Blackburn 1, an absolute disaster if you believe the season's over.
Yeah, I must admit to after the game, coming home from the game, listening to Radio Leeds, it was, you wouldn't know we were top of the table if you were listening to the phone in. Straight off the bat, it was a terrible game. If that's what
half, especially that first half was 45 minutes I've seen in a long time.
And bearing in mind the game at Earwood Park was similar. God help those Blackburn fans if that's how they play.
In fairness, it isn't how they play everywhere. They are a much better team to watch from that. Eustace is just very good at coaching a team into, it's not even a low block, into just keeping the shape and forcing a team wide. I mean, he's played Leeds under Farker. Was that time number 4? And he's won 3 of them and had a 1-1 draw. The other 3 1-0. The first thing I've got on the notes here is, does Eustace have Daniel Farker's number? And I think the answer is yes.
It's definitely one of the worst games I've watched in a long time. In as much as I can sit and watch games where Leeds lose, and you at least at times you can at least say, at least the other team's half decent. No, this was just awful. There was nothing you could appreciate about that game for, I'm going to say, about an hour.
Yeah,
aesthetically,
there was nothing to do. Like, if it wasn't against Leeds, maybe I could have found myself going. And I did say from the start, because obviously we sit quite high up, we get quite a good sort of tactical view of the game. It's a bit like, we've said before, it's a bit like watching FM on 2D. Sometimes you can see the shape, and we were going. I'll tell you what, they are well coached. I think the way that we phrased it was, they know when to go and when to stay. And yes, 95% of the time it's stay. But they didn't make stupid decisions. Like they were coached really well and made us work really hard for not a lot of reward. I mean, half time, Leeds had 2 shots and Blackburn had 1. Even though Leeds had what felt like 107% of the ball.
And of those shots, the XG. I can't imagine it was high.
I don't know what it was, but it won't have been high.
Like I say, there was the bouncing header down from Pascal Strauch that went straight to Pears.
Yeah.
I can't even think of any of their efforts.
Well, I've just found it. I've got it on FB Ref, which is what I normally use for these, because they seem pretty consistent. The final XG they've got is Leeds 1.2, Blackburn 0.5. And seeing as we had a penalty, that's 0.5 all.
Yeah.
It's not much of a game.
No.
And I mean, Danny Barth's goal is from 4 yards out middle of goal. So that must have been 0.46 of the 0.5. It was not a good game of football. But yeah, first half.
Go on, Jack. Talk us through the highlights.
No, just to say, Leeds had made a few. The one thing that people thought was that Ampadu dropping out of midfield might make us struggle a bit because we might need that bit of bite. And we did struggle a bit, but it wasn't due to the lack of bite. I think it was just that, like, Tanaka and Rothwell were just fine. And maybe Ampadu would have been slightly better than that, but we don't know. There's so little to say about the first half. Byron went off for verbal at half-time. And then Bogle went off with a dead leg pretty soon after half-time, so we'll just put them together. The main question was Verba for Byron. Byron played a lot of football. I didn't expect him to start this one unless he had to, and then he did after. Verba was probably better than Byron. when he came on. He actually got forward a bit more, and having someone on the left side with a left foot seemed to help. And then Bogle went off with a dead leg, and Ampadu came on. So my next question is: has Isaac Schmidt shat on Daniel Farke's windscreen?
Oh dear, that poor boy. The listening to Farke after the game, by the sounds of things, Sam Byram is now struggling with a cold, because if he's not, like you say, if he's not got a calf problem, then I suppose, apparently he was very pale at halftime, and even though he insisted he could go on, I think it was decided for him that Max Verber would play. And to be fair, there was part of me after the game looking at that, wondering if that was sort of a predetermined sub.
Yeah, I did. I mean, once he was on the starting lineup, I did think he can't have many minutes left in his legs, given it's Sam Byram, and as good as he's been for us, he always struggles to play back-to-back games.
Yeah. Ampadu was a funny one. I suppose it's a weird one, because obviously you've got Dan James there, who of your wingers is probably the best defensively of the four. In terms of his willingness.
He's technically better at defending. He just has a lot of effort.
Yeah, he's the most willing of the four wingers. So it was quite odd that Ampadu was the choice to go there, who it sort of made sense, but we will go quite tactical on this, because I think you have to for the second half.
It was meant to be a back three, I think, but it just was weirdly lopsided.
Oh yeah, because you had, let's say Ampadu was a traditional fullback, whereas Max Verber was like a left wing back.
Yeah.
Playing quite high up. So you had this asymmetric three in the back line, then a wing back and a holding midfielder. Willie Gnonto is now box to box, and I don't know. It
looked so, other than it would just be two at the back instead of three. It was almost exactly the formation I tend to go into on FM when I'm 1-0 down with about 10 minutes left. Just like if Farke plays 3-1, fuck it. That is a 2-1, fuck it.
Yeah.
Because you're just going, well, we'll either concede again or we'll equalise. It was almost like a back three where Ampadu could step out with the ball. I hesitate to say libero, because then I am being a bit wonky. And then like the wing backs of James and Verber, but more like Verber's a wing back and actually James is just a winger. You know, like when Jack Harrison used to just have the left-hand side to himself in that weird chase for game asymmetric formation that Bielsa played at times.
Yeah.
It was kind of like Dan James was doing that, but he never actually had to get back, so he could just play as a winger. Yeah, because Gnonto was very involved without being able to get into many key areas. The one thing that I do think worked is I do think having Bamford and Joseph on worked quite well, just because they both make a lot of runs, and I think it helped break down their structure a bit. Because instead of just having, because they were basically whenever Peru dropped in, they just sent a defender with him and stayed with him, and I think that they were just very well structured with that.
I think one of the things that disappointed me definitely in the first half is so we got into this, and obviously you've been to more games than I have, so you've probably seen it a bit better. When we were in possession, quite often Rothwell seemed to be dropping in as like a third centre back on the ball, and we'd send the full backs up. We'd sort of pass it around Rothwell, Roden, and Strauch for a little bit, and then seemingly Piru would be the one who would drop into the middle to receive the pass. But he'd play it back that quickly that it never really actually dragged anyone out of position. And then we just sort of resumed to knocking it about a bit. But it's sort of in my head, the idea is that you play the ball into Piru, he takes a touch, it's only a second or two, allow someone to sort of move in to close you down a bit, then you drop it back. And I think in an ideal world, that's when we're looking, right, can we hit one of the wingers now?
I think in an ideal world, he might take a little bit longer on the ball, but because he was man-marked so much, he didn't really have time to take a touch. And because of our movement was a bit lethargic and stuff like that, when he got a ball into feet, he never had a pass on to like flick it round corner or go sideways. It was pretty much always either the person who gave him it or the person to the side of him were the only people he could actually give it to.
I don't necessarily mind it going back to that person, but it was just the fact he was doing it so quickly just meant that they could hold their positions and it never moved anyone anywhere. And by that point, your backline's at the halfway line, and then you're sort of struggling to look for the ball out wide. And I think the big complaint was the lack of pace in the game, which I can see it from both sides in as much as, yes, there has been a lot of football played over this period, but at the same time, you're looking at the sort of the key players in this where, and we talked about when he did this with the wingers, that obviously Ampadu, Rothwell and Tanaka have all played 2 out of 3. James and Solomon were both subs for the last game. So they would have had a decent rest coming into this one. And you've also been swapping Pirro and Joseph. So there is an element to me thinking, I know there's a lot of football in this period, but I do think we've used the squad quite well, apart from Isaac Schmidt.
He's definitely rotated a lot better this season than he did last season. There's no doubt.
So, I mean, ultimately, and obviously we still need to actually discuss the goals and that. The result in and of itself is fine because you've picked up 10 points from 12.
Yeah, over the Christmas period. You'd always take that.
It's a very good return, but yeah, it's very much the manner in which we will discuss in a moment that made it even more disappointing.
Yeah. Like the build-up all over was too slow. I do think the biggest sort of block we had in that first half was we did get the ball out to Byram a lot. And in the second half, when the ball did go out to Verba, which she probably should have done more, because there was a lot of time where he had a lot of space and we didn't give him the ball. But because Byram kept coming back in onto his right foot, I think that was a little bit of a blockage in build-up. But there's loads of other reasons for it. To be honest, for half, it was a shit game for 85 minutes, this. But yeah, the changes around 7. I'm not going to look at when they were, but they'll have been about 70 minutes when we made 3, I assume. Joseph for Peru, Nonto for Rothwell, Bamford for Solomon. It was probably harsh on Solomon, who I think had been his best attacker. He'd put in 2 or 3 really good deliveries, all of Money's left foot, carrying on that theory that he's left-footed and doesn't know it. Whereas Dan James, I thought, was having a bit of an off day, so I would have probably took him off instead. But this is one of them. Remember, there's 2 teams on the pitch. I do think he also had an off day because he was up against the best player on the pitch, which was Owen Beck. For Blackburn, he was really good. I think Leeds' man at match because was probably Strauch. He had a good game and he gets the goal, so that's probably enough to make him man at match. But I think Owen Beck was the best player on the pitch. But the changes, as much as it didn't make us fluent or anything, it didn't make us play well. It did sort of stretch the game a little bit, and as much as it was by no means a classic, we got the goal. So I can't be that annoyed at the go for it changes on this occasion. It looked like being 0-0. Verba cross sort of ricochets out towards Joseph. Him and the defender are going for it. He beats the defender to it, who absolutely throws himself into a tackle, gives away the penalty. In the ground, it looked an absolute stonewall penalty. Having seen it back on TV, it's a little bit soft. I still think it's a pen, but it's a bit soft. It looked like he from where we were in the stand, it looked like he'd absolutely fucking clattered him. But
yeah, it also took the referee an age to give it as well.
Yeah,
that was it was like a big cricket appeal. Was that when you had that much time to turn around and just sort of pause and stare at him?
So that just reminded me. you saying it took a while to give it. Obviously, you had the joys of Radio Leeds and the phone in. I, unfortunately, had the much worse punishment that was hearing some of TalkSport on the way home. And this Blackburn fan rung up. And honestly, he's like, oh, and the referee is just waiting, and he's talking to the Leeds players, and he goes, oh, go on, you can have a penalty like you get every week. I'm like, we've had like fucking 9 letters of apology from the PG. We've had more letters of apology from the PGMOL than any other team this season. And I'm not annoyed at him. He's a Blackburn fan. He doesn't need to know that. But the fucking presenters do. They should have some concept of what's going on in football. Like, well, they haven't actually had many penalties.
Yeah.
But yeah, also we were in the game at Ewood Park, we were time wasting like mad, just like they were, which is weird considering we're 1-0 down for most of it. Yeah, it was a weird one to hear, but it was very funny.
Sorry, I've just seen where the bitterness comes from now. So we've received 3 penalties this season. The maximum is 5 with Watford. We've received 3, and tied bottom with 1 is Blackburn.
Right, yeah. I figured it was a much more of a Blackburn. And they said, well, we probably wouldn't have got that at the other end because it's at Ellen Road. Possibly. That happens in...
By the way, who did they get their penalty against, Jack?
I can't think. It must have been like... It must have been like Hull. Hull, was it?
No.
It definitely wasn't Ailton. It definitely wasn't Alton Acker that gave it away. I can tell you that for certain. I mean, in fairness, it was a penalty.
Oh, it absolutely was, but yeah.
And Strauch sends the keeper the wrong way. Good penalty.
And then,
yeah. So, but we got the goal, and it was a scrappy game that deserved to be 0-0. And if we'd have come away with a 0-0, I would have been disappointed with a draw at home against a team we're better than and gone. But I'm just going to give all the credit to John Eustace. He's coached a good game and he's kept us out. Once we went 1-0 up, that's when a draw becomes a shit result. At that exact moment. And, the problem is that Leeds have already made 5 subs. Farker's done. Bring all the attackers on and inshallah. And just go there. And you could tell when they had to drop back into the standard system, even though we did have the players to sort of make it work, they just looked a bit all over the place. But I think every Leeds fan will have said, not the same quote, but the same idea. Something along the lines of nothing stupid. So anyway, Blackburn have brought on this massive fucking centre forward who will leave completely unmarked at the back post at a corner, heads it back across, scrap. Danny Bart from about 5 yards scores. I mean, it happens. It's annoying, but it was a bad time to defend a corner terribly.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you say, the fact after all that, you finally got yourself in that position. And the only way you can describe it is throwing it away. I think it's one of those things in football at this point where quite often we have spoken about how teams set up corners and things like that. And it really begs the question, when you've got all 11 men in the penalty area and Blackburn don't, how is the biggest player in the pitch left free at the back post?
Yeah, that's... right, I haven't watched it back. But we almost never have someone on the post, so I'm assuming we didn't. So we had 11 players, none of whom were on the post and none of whom were on the halfway line, and yet they're still the big 6'4" bloke is unmarked. Then Danny Bart, who's, I don't know, I mean, he volleyed it in, so his height doesn't matter that much, but the other massive bloke is kind of unmarked in the middle. It's a shame. I mean, look, if either team deserved to win, quote unquote, deserved to win, it was us. But a draw was a perfectly reasonable result. I can't get mad. Even though we were the better team, I can't say that it was like a robbery because we weren't particularly good either.
No, it was, I don't know, whatever the opposite of a smash and grab. Tap and leave.
Yeah. Like their goal is a little bit smash and grab at the end, but it's not like the Portsmouth game where I know that was 3-3. But like we should have had about 9 and they should have had maybe 1. And it was real. This was, we deserved somewhere between 0 and 1. they deserved 0, and it finished 1-1. It's not nearly as unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other side of it as well, where like you were saying there about Farke's made his changes. The team we had there was still fine. Like Aronson drops in as your slightly more attacking centre mid alongside Tanaka, and Nonto can play as an actual 10 then.
Yeah, I think it was I think that there is a chance, and we won't have a way of knowing this, but I think that there was a bit of people didn't know who they were meant to be marking at that corner.
Literally someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really shit result when we lose to Hull because we're away.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that makes the difference, isn't it? Like, if we beat Hull, because this is still a game where there's like 3 days rest between, I would say that this is the last game that is the Christmas period. Because it's when you've got all the back-to-back games. If we come out of 5 games and we've got 13 points, like, that's not just good, that's brilliant. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So if we beat Hull, this result is fine. If we don't get the one against Hull, it becomes a bit more annoying. But like Sheffield United got beat, Burnley drew, so we actually extended as lead at the top by a point. It's not a disaster by any stretch. It's just a bit disappointing. The thing with these results is, in the Championship, you're not going to win. You're just not going to win every week. It don't. But apart from that Reading team that's got about 185 points, no one. You don't just win and win and win. It's like, I mean, like, that's why I'm so flabbergasted that Leeds are like 1 to 25 to get promoted. 1 to 7, 1 to 6. All right, yeah, fair enough. 1 to 25 is so short. But the next game, we are away from home, as you were saying, at 22nd place Hull City. They got beat 1-0 in the last minute against Middlesbrough on New Year's Day. But by all accounts, Borough could have been out of sight. It's one of them, from the way it was described to me, was they didn't actually have loads of shots. What they had a lot of was like, and they're 3-on-2 and they really should pass this and have a great chance, and then they screwed up the pass. So like, it didn't come up in that, but they had all of the game and should have won easy. Before that, under Selles, because Ruben Selles is the new manager replacing Tim Volter, they lost 1-0. They lost 1-0 at home to Blackburn, drew 1-1 against Hull, lost 2-1 at Coventry, won 2-1 against Swansea, lost 1-0 at Preston, and then and the good result of winning 1-0 at Blackburn. By the looks of it, he was playing. His base formation for Sellers is pretty much always 4-3-3, but they were playing it with a number 10, and that wasn't working as well. So they've sort of dropped a midfielder in and gone to more of a straight 4-3-3. And since then, they've won 2 out of 4, and by all accounts, have played a lot better. I obviously haven't seen loads, but they seem to have improved, and the review is that they're a lot more solid, but they don't look good going forward.
Yeah, I mean, despite my lofty predictions at the start of the year for Hull, I do look now and think there was, as everyone else clearly saw apart from me, was how reliant they were on, was it Carvalho and...
They had Carvalho, they had Jadon Philogene on the wings who's gone back to Villa, and they had Liam Delap up top.
Yeah. So yeah, that has massively impacted them.
So has, by the way, and I didn't realise how bad this was until I was looking today, the injuries. Bellumi, who was playing on the right wing early in the season and by all accounts was very good, he's injured. Liam Miller, who was brilliant for Preston against us twice last season, playing off the left, injured, both with ACLs, both out for the season. They got Carl Rushworth in on loan from Brighton, who's a really good goalkeeper. He's been injured for like 3 months, and he's apparently getting recalled because the Ivo Panda has been quite good in goal, so he's keeping his place. They signed Charlie Hughes, who's a young centre-back who was playing at Wigan. I don't know loads about him, but apparently he's like really highly rated. He's like 21 now. Played loads at Wigan. He was captaining them at 19. He's injured. Ryan Longman, winger, injured. Casey Palmer, who's pretty good in the Championship and has been for years, he's injured. And they even have an FM wonder kid. At least that's what I'm going with this name. 20-year-old Ecuadorian centre mid Oscar Zambrano. That's an FM wonder kid name. Don't know if he's any good, but he's suspended. Doping ban. So there's a lot of things in there that Tim Volter beforehand and Selles now, that's not going to help. Especially the wingers, because by all accounts, those were about their best 2 players, and they're both out for the season with ACLs.
Yeah, it's. I'm not going to lie to you, I completely forgot about Ruben Selles.
Well, he had that little spell at Southampton, but when he's gone to Reading, and Reading are a complete basket case of a club that's fallen apart at the seams, and he's held them together. Because I thought that they were going to get another consecutive relegation because they were just that knackered, and he's sort of sorted them out and made them into, just basically made them competent. Like because they still had some good players, like they're 5th in the table already, which with all the noise going around them is a pretty good job.
Yeah, it has been mad there, but yeah, we absolutely should beat these.
Oh, absolutely! Like you look through their team, and there's good players in there, but nothing absolutely outstanding. Obviously, they've got 2 ex-Leeds right backs because we've got Cody Drammer and Louis Coyle, but Coyle's played left back a lot this season by all accounts. And the main left back is Ryan Giles, who's got a bit of a wand of a left foot, but he can't really defend. So I think they'll probably play Coyle at left back and Drama at right back in this. Maybe they'll play Giles on the left wing, like Blackburn did with Owen Beck. But Owen Beck can actually defend, whereas by all accounts, Ryan Giles really can't. Centre backs don't really know much about Alfie Jones and Sean McLaughlin. He'll be in because. The Charlie Hughes, the good defender, isn't there. They have got Stephen Alzate and centre mid. They've got him on a free when he left Brighton, and I quite liked him when he was at Brighton. I would have, in the time before we had loads of centre mids, I would have quite liked him. I did get very confused when I saw Xavi Simons in the midfield, but obviously it's not the Dutch one.
Xavier
Simons, who's from London, apparently. But yeah, I don't know which way. Regan Slater is apparently, if they're going to get goals from midfield, it would be him. And they've also, he played the last game, I don't know what about him, but Gustavo Puerta, Colombian 21-year-old centre mid, that's a bit of an FM wonder kid name as well, so he's probably good.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of these, because they've got Xavi Simons, they've also up front got João Pedro, again, not that one. This is the one that played for Cagliari for years and years. I read a couple of things basically saying his legs have gone, but he's still decent. And then on the wings, probably Mason Burstow's played the last 2. Who is probably still on loan from Chelsea? I don't. Oh no, I think we've just signed him.
Yeah, he needed help.
Yeah, who I haven't really seen him step up. He had a loan at Sunderland and didn't really do much. That's the last time I saw him properly. But they've got Abu Kamara, who I think they've signed from Norwich, but he was on loan at Portsmouth last year. And I know it was in League One, but he was really good at Portsmouth by all accounts. So he's looking at their sort of expected team. If he was to play, he's probably the biggest danger. If he came in and really sort of ran at whether it's Byram or Verba. If he gets away, neither of them are catching him. So they might be. They've also got Abdul Kadir Omer, who can play on the wing, but I don't know anything about him. So it's really, I think that Kamara's probably the most worrying, and that Alzate is a decent player. But if they're going to end up sat deep, you don't get his main strengths anyway.
Stephen Alzate feels like he's been around for a while.
Yeah, and I bet he's like, I don't know.
He's 27.
Oh, I was gonna say, I bet he's like 25.
Yeah,
but
I think he just broke through fairly early at Swindon.
Oh yeah, that's what, because I knew it was somewhere before Brighton, but I couldn't remember where it was. In terms of Leeds, I mean, like, it'll change a bit. Like, Byram has to be a doubt. He's played loads and he's been ill, and now Verba's fit.
Yeah, I don't think you'd chance him in this. I think you see Verba come in.
Yeah. Bogle, Farker said Bogle was just a dead leg and that he should be available. I mean, hopefully that's true. But if he isn't, it has to be Schmidt, right?
No, it's Ampadu.
It's Ampadu.
Like it absolutely is. I think if Bogle isn't fit for this, then it just means Tanaka and Rothwell stay in the middle and Ampadu plays right back.
Yeah. If Bogle is fit, which centre mid pair do you think it'll be?
I think he goes. I think Ampadu does come back in the middle. I'm trying to remember which way round it was that he rested them, because I think he
rested
did. I think
first and then Rothwell.
Yeah, so I wonder if he goes back to Ampadu and Rothwell then.
I've got it down as Ampadu and Rothwell when I noted it down before we started, but basically because Rothwell was the one that didn't play the full game against Blackburn. So I've gone Ampadu, Rothwell. And then front four, obviously, it could change around. I've gone James, Aronson, Solomon, and Joseph.
You think he sticks with James and Solomon?
Well, I thought Solomon was the best of our front four, so I think he stays in. I just think that he just plays James that much, and I think pretty much all of them are going to get rested against Harrogate. So they're all going to get the best part of 2 weeks off, aren't they? After this. Yeah, because like after this, the next actual... Because cup football, in the words of All Stats That Way, cup football doesn't count. So the next game is then the 19th of January. So I think he will go full out with James for this and then just rest him.
I'd be interested. I think Solomon might come out.
And who do you reckon it's Nonto or Ramazani?
I'm gonna say Nonto, but I don't know.
Yeah, because he made the changes and we did get the goal to go 1-0 up. I can't say for it, but I did find it very surprising that Ramazani didn't get on in the last game.
That's, I suppose, when you're not using the left hand side, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, fair point. But regardless of which front four we pick and which centre mid pair we pick, and if both fullbacks were out, that would be one of the only things that might worry me a bit. If we lose Bogle, I do think that'll affect us a bit more. But no matter what, even worst case scenario for all the things that we know about, we should have enough to beat these.
Yeah, I think so, and especially like you say before we get into the FA Cup games as well. And even then, it's an actual week in between games again, isn't it? We're somewhat back to normal after this.
After this one, we've got a week till Harrogate, and then the Sheffield Wednesday game is the Sunday at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, it's I think this is a great opportunity. Finish this run of games off, get a win, like you say, 13 out of 15. is a great takeaway from that run of games. And then, McKinstry, McCalmont, Casey, get them in.
Lewis Bate.
Yeah. I miss those kids in a way.
No, that's what I think will happen. Like, we'll obviously talk about the Harrogate game close to the time, but I think that it'll heavily rotate for that, and Schmidt will be on the bench. So yeah, we've got
the usual.
The usual sorts of predictions. Benny's 2-0 win, Alex 1-0 win, Connie's gone for a 3-0 win. What have you got, Casey?
I'm going to go with a 2-0 win.
Another 2-0 win. And of course, Leeds have definitely got enough to win this, but it's an away game, so 1-1. But yeah, I
see we've traded places here.
Yeah. Well, we all went for a win last time and we didn't win, so it must be that. That will do. We might even start getting some proper transfer noise and stuff, for us to not do.
Oh, I don't know. I've been reading some fantastic clickbait stories that Patrick Bamford might be leaving, but no one has speculated a single club.
Because as we said, who can afford him?
You know what?
By the way, just him coming on and stuff, there is that outside chance that he starts him. And if he's going to play him, I'd rather he started him and brought him off the bench. Because Bamford's always been crap off the bench. Yeah. Even when he was at his best, he wasn't much good off the bench. So we'll see. But yeah, that will do us for episode 297 of the Backwards Podcast. I don't know when that's something next week, but there's much less time pressure now for quick turnarounds and stuff. So it'll be whatever day works out best. But I've been Jack, see ya.
I've been Casey. Have a good one.